Hey, what's up guys? Little man with a big opinion here. Today is going to be my second video on being a prepper with diabetes. The first one came out and I had only been diagnosed with diabetes for about a month. Now that I've gotten into a routine, in the beginning I was on insulin. My doctor took me off that and he basically said I can produce enough, meaning you're type 2. And so a lot of the information that I'm giving you will be leaning more towards the type 2 scenario. I can't speak too much on type 1 diabetes, partially because I'm not a doctor, and partially because the information that I'm receiving to live a long, healthy life isn't for type 1 diabetes. So, what I'm giving you can help some with type 1, but it's not going to be the best information. I would say talk with your doctor, go over some of the tips that I'm going to talk about in this video off my little notepad, and if your doctor won't work with you, then I would consider changing doctors and getting one that can help you out on the prepper front. So the first thing that I would say is the 3 things that you can stockpile ahead of time that don't really have an expiration date will be a glucose monitor, your test strips, and your needles. Haven't actually tested my blood sugar today, but if you're diabetic, you're really supposed to do it once a day. In the beginning, sometimes it'll be 2 or even 3 times a day, just so they can kind of establish, when you should take medicines. They'll want you eating different foods at different times. And that was a good bleeder, and I wiped the blood off. And I'm probably going to have to poke myself again. But in the US, they have said that if you're the only person using the needle, if it comes down to it, you can use it up to 3 times without having any issues. If other people had to use it, then obviously they don't want you sharing needles with other people. So that'll be the first tip. If you ran out of, your technical single-use needles, then that's the first thing. You can make one needle last for up to 3 days, and we're good, sitting at about 122. So slightly high if you wanted to be technical and stay within the 100 or the 70 to 120, but I've been doing some higher than normal vitamin C supplements just because some people in the family are sick, and as a diabetic, you don't really want to get sick because having a pre-existing condition could make things worse. But 122 is not bad, and we'll move on. So after you're done, you really want to dispose of your mess. If you haven't purchased like a specific needle container, they say using a laundry detergent bottle works out great. It's a thick enough plastic that your needles aren't going to punch through it and be of an issue. So, prepping with diabetes. Like I stated, this is the information that I've received from my doctor and talking with him. Just be upfront. Let him know that you're that kind of person, and they will give you the information to make prepping easier for you. So, specifically told me that the more muscle you have on your body, the better. It helps kickstart your pancreas, letting it know it needs to break down the sugars in your body. Releases insulin, makes you more insulin sensitive. And so exercise is an important part. Having more muscle, your body wants to maintain it rather than lose it. And if you have diabetes and you have fat on you, it can be difficult for your body to produce insulin to break down the fat that you already have stored on your body. The next thing, we did a body weight or body mass index, and he said I was sitting at 17.1, which is considered healthy and fit. Athletes tend to range between 6 and 13%. Fit is 14 to 17. Acceptable is 18 to 24%. And obese is 25% or higher. If you are in that higher fat percentage category, the likelihood of developing type 2 diabetes increases. So, really, if you want to try to avoid this as best as possible, then exercise. More muscle on you is better. Less fat on you is better, generally speaking. And he said to help keep your sugars in line, not increasing your prescriptions. He recommended dropping the body fat to 15 or 16% by the end of the year. So that's, and that was, I went and saw him at the beginning of July. So 6 months, dropping 1 to 2% isn't a drastic reduction. You're not having to go on the strictest diet. You're not having to work out 3-4 hours a day. But generally, a slow decline in body fat and an increase in muscle mass on your body is a good thing to avoid becoming diabetic. And if you are, it makes life easier for you. So, as a prepper, if you are a type 2 diabetic, you can stockpile batteries or extra glucose monitors. The specific needles I use are a micro thin 33 gauge. I was using 29 for a while, and one day they were out, so I just grabbed these. This box of 100 was $4 or $5, and if you're having to do it once a day, then you're spending about $15 to stack away a year's supply. I get mine from HEB. You can, that's a Texas-based grocery store. You can get it from Walmart. I'm pretty sure Sam's has a pharmacy section. I'm pretty sure whatever your local grocery store will have a pharmacy section that you can stockpile that. The test strips, 50 of them, I believe were $8. I think they were $8. So it's a little bit more expensive. That's buying about 6 of these. So 6 times 8 is 50. So $50 to $75 to go ahead and stack away a year's supply of these guys. And then for this, I don't remember the exact battery that goes in it. It's one of the thin ones, and I actually haven't stored up extra batteries. I just went and bought 2 more of these. This test meter is $9 at Walmart. And it does show your last blood test. It'll show your 14-day average. So, it's saying my 14-day average was 118. 30-day average was also 118. And the first one that I did with this was May 21st, and it's saying it was 145. For some reason, it jumped to June 16th, and it says 117. And then the very next day, June 17th, it was 75. So it keeps track of Oh, it's going through each individual day that I tested. Okay, turn you off. I don't want to waste the battery. But they're fairly inexpensive. And then, with your doctor, you get your A1C tested every 3 months. I actually haven't looked into buying the test strips for yourself to do that. The one that my doctor uses, it has like a 99% accuracy. You do a typical blood draw. I think it's like twice the amount of blood for that one. And it takes 5 minutes, and it'll show your running average for the last 90 days. The last one I took was like a 5.3 A1C, which means I averaged about 130, I believe, for the blood sugar level. And to put that in perspective, the very first day that I figured out I was diabetic, went into DKA, and they tested my sugar at the hospital, and it was like an 840. So that one was done 3 days from the very first day, and you can see what changing the diet and exercise can do in a 90-day period. And really, the diet hasn't changed all that much, because another thing that the doctor said, which is general information, is the more active you are, the more lenient you can be on how many carbs you consume, how many calories you consume, how much sugar you consume. So I've got a list of generic foods that I eat on a daily basis, and these foods should be foods that you're storing as a prepper, or they should be foods that you plan on producing yourself or being self-sufficient. I do have 6 months worth of rice for 2 people and 6 months worth of pinto beans for 2 people. He said I can eat that, just don't make that my sole source of calories if, it came down to that. Mix in fruits, vegetables, and meats, and you should do fairly okay. But on the eating side, most of your protein should come from meats, so pork, chicken, beef, fish. Fish is probably the best one in this group. So if you are going to eat meats, which I believe you should, then you can stockpile freeze-dried meats. You can do dehydrated meats, kind of like a beef jerky. You can smoke meats, or you can have a small livestock stock that, as a prepper, you should be shooting for self-sustainability. And I would include chickens, a couple of goats, maybe a couple of sheep. And if you have the space for it, I'd also include maybe a cow or two. If you are very limited on space, I would choose rabbits and chickens. That way you're also getting eggs, and the rabbits reproduce so frequently that for a family of 4, having 2 breeding males and 2 does will be plenty to get your meat protein out of the way. Along with the eggs from your chickens, you should be fine on your protein list. The next thing I have on here are leafy greens, peanut butter, nuts, strawberries, and beans. In the fruit category, you can eat any fruit that you want to. You do have to keep it somewhat moderate, especially if your body's more sensitive to the increase in sugars, and your pancreas doesn't produce as much insulin. So again, I can't give you the best answer. You got to talk with your doctor. But my doctor said, 1 to 2 servings of fruit, a couple servings of vegetables isn't going to hurt you. And I've said it before, planted a lime and a lemon tree, with the plans of next spring planting more trees. So fruit shouldn't be eliminated from your table. Just figure out how your body works best for you when it comes to consuming fruits. You get a lot of vitamins from the different fruits. A, C, and vitamin D comes from most of your tree bearing fruits or berry fruit or not berry bush fruits, and so you can incorporate freeze dried fruits or you can dehydrate your fruits to increase the shelf life of those, and they're generally a okay food source for people with diabetes. I put on the list beans. You can get a lot of protein from beans. You can also get a decent amount of carbs. So in moderation, two of the easiest things to stockpile for preppers is rice and beans. You throw them together and you get a pretty decent meal with your carbs and proteins and calorie count. Just don't make that your sole source of calories. Include the fruits and vegetables and meats that I talked about in the beginning of this video. The next thing, the medicine that I am consuming. Not on insulin anymore. Doctor said I shouldn't have to take insulin. In the previous video, I did talk about insulin having a shelf life of up to a year if kept refrigerated. And once you puncture the seal on the insulin pen or the vial, then you've got about 28 days to use it. Right now, I'm on metformin, and the other one I don't know how to pronounce. Starts with a P. But they will both last on the shelves, kept at room temperature of up to 77 degrees in a cool, dry, dark environment for up to 3 years. After that, its potency starts to decline fairly rapidly, but it's got 3 times the shelf life of insulin. So, if society never came back to the way it was, you could run into an issue, but I'll explain a little bit more of what my doctor said, and you can bring these questions up with your doctor and, try to work out a better solution. So, he said that, technically you don't need to take the metformin if, you got to a point where you exercised enough and you kept your sugars in line, below 130, 140. If they stayed like that forever and you weren't taking metformin, then you're doing pretty good. He also said if it's under 100, then you can make the decision for yourself on whether or not you're going to take your evening metformin tablet. He didn't give me a designated time to test the blood sugar. For the most part, every 3 days I switch it. For the first 3 days, I'll test it in the morning. Next 3 days, I'll test it around lunch. And the next 3 days, I'll test it around dinner or before I go to bed. Or you test it if you aren't feeling well. It could be fairly low and you need a little boost of sugar, or it could be fairly high. And specifically, he said if it's over 240, then use a ketose test strip just to make sure the sugar in your body isn't becoming acidic. So the last thing that I would say about this is, over this last month, I haven't taken the metformin 3 times. It has been under 100, and I chose to take it the 3 times I didn't take it. For one, when it was 75 2 days ago, I didn't take it. Another time, it was actually low, and I didn't feel all that great. It was like 61, I think. Maybe 59. I don't remember the exact readings, so I didn't take it then. So that could be one way that you are slowly building a stockpile of this medicine. is if your doctor gives you parameters on when not to take it, then you have extra pills left over at the end of the month. My doctor started me out on a 3-month prescription, and he's upped it to a 6-month prescription. So I can pick up to 6 months of the medicine in one go. And the insurance will only cover a month at a time. It's like $6.50 to get both of the meds for the month, and I think it was $20 to pay for it out of pocket. So it is fairly inexpensive, and if you are on a tight budget, then that's a decision you need to make on your own on what is most important for your prepping supplies. I went ahead and picked up 2 extra months at that point. I didn't do all 6 months at once, but if you have the money and it's higher on your priority list, by all means go for it. If you're only picking it up once a month because you want to save the extra money from the insurance and you want to put it into diabetic friendly foods, then go for that as well. It's your own decision. I'm not really in a position to advise you on what you should or shouldn't do. I'm just giving you the information my doctor gave me, and hopefully with this information, you can ask better questions, or you can approach your doctor with the same questions that I had with this scenario. As a prepper, you don't want to have years and years worth of supplies put away. You've spent weeks worth of your extra time learning skills and developing yourself to be able to survive something, and you get nipped in the butt because of a pre-existing condition. So the last thing I'll leave you with is lower body fat is generally better. Exercising at least 30 minutes a day is generally better. And knowing what foods you should eat to maintain your caloric intake without increasing your blood sugar is something that you've got to figure out on your own. But once you figure that out, you can develop a plan for stockpiling the different foods. And with that, I don't have anything else on this list. If you found this information useful, then like and subscribe. We're sitting at like 55% of the people that watch my videos are subscribed. If you have a friend or family member that would benefit from this information, then share the video with them. I hope that the information I gave you, you can make better decisions and figure stuff out with your doctor and be a better prepper for it. And with that, I'll catch you in the next video.